Welcome to How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At podcast, a mix of both solo episodes and expert interviews. Our ideal listener is an early career, ambitious, and passionate online language services provider. She is committed to professional growth and achieving success in the fiercely competitive translation and interpreting industry. She balances multiple responsibilities with resourcefulness, values mentorship, is open to learning, and investing in her professional development journey. She embraces technology and seeks to optimize workflow, eager to connect with like-minded peers and build out her professional network. She is determined to overcome challenges and become a sought-after freelance translator. And here's your host, medical translator and translator business mentor, Jason Willis-Lee.
Most business owners treat their podcast like a side project, chasing downloads and hoping something sticks. But your podcast should be a powerful tool that brings in leads and clients. Vince Quinn is the creative director at SBX Productions, and he helps coaches, consultants, and creatives turn their podcast into a strategic client-generating asset. If your show feels scattered or stuck, he's here to help you get intentional and aligned with your business goals.
And welcome to Freelancer Training on How to Find More Direct Clients, a podcast hosted by myself, Jason Willis-Lee. This is the show that makes digital marketing easier and more fun by combining just the perfect combo and just the right dose of business strategy and tech. I'm your host, Jason Willis-Lee, digital marketing enthusiast, and today I'm very thrilled to welcome a colleague, a former radio professional. His name is Vince Quinn. Vince brings a unique perspective to our discussion. Vince, welcome to the show. Can you just tell us a bit about your personal journey and just sort of ad-lib on what you told me before we came on air?
Yeah, so long story short, I started in sports talk radio in Philly is how I began my career. I was going to events and telling people to spin a wheel to win a pen or a t-shirt. From there, I started to work all of these different jobs within the building, pretty much anything you could do, ranging from promotions to news reporting to writing articles and doing digital social work, camera work, all sorts of things. And at the height of it, I had a nationally syndicated radio show that was on 225 stations through CBS Sports Radio. And getting to that point at such a young age, I saw where the industry was going, thought it was terrible, frankly, for somebody like me trying to build a career and a future. And along the way in my radio career, I had all of these experiences and work in podcasting, and I saw where podcasting was going. So I had the opportunity to jump into full-time podcast work and run a studio, and that's what I've been doing for about 5 years now.
Do you think in many ways podcasting has superseded radio? Is it working alongside it, or has it kind of replaced the world you used to inhabit?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much replaced it, because the problem is radio has consistently worked to take people out of the equation. Think of music radio, for example. One of the things that was great about music radio is all of these DJs who would have recommendations and really know the bands and go to the concerts and have taste. And by the time I was done with radio, there were empty rooms with the lights off that were running a station 24/7 because it was a pre-programmed playlist. If they had any voice tracking from a professional, it was all pre-recorded and loaded into the system days or weeks in advance. And so it was a lifeless thing. And that was where it started to go. So podcasting was able to be so specific with all these little niche topics, and people could do all these different formats where it's not, hey, you have to talk for 4 hours to the largest audience possible. It's, I can talk for 10 minutes to an incredibly specific audience. And so the quality of the information or the depth of it or the passion for it, like, it just shines through so much more. And it's just a better medium for everybody.
What's the name of the famous media hall in New York? Is it RKO Radio, where all the movie stars used to start before they became famous? Is it RKO?
I'm trying to think of what that station is. I know what you're talking about.
It was on
With
Broad.
Casey Kasem and breaking all of those
I
people
think that
and
was it. I think it's called RKO. It's where people like Gregory Peck started out and all these people in the 1930s. So anyway, that's just an aside because I'm a bit of a movie freak. Let's get into lead generation because I like the personal branding piece of online business and I help my audience with basically finding work. You know, we're all finding it difficult with AI. You can imagine how AI has played havoc with the language services industry. A lot of translating is now automated. So we have to sort of navigate this, these new waters. How can hosting, Vince, be a lead generation superpower? How do you get from great conversations on a podcast like this one, on a webinar, or just a chat for coffee? How can that help freelance translators build trust, create authority, and attract clients without hard selling?
well, yeah, that's all it is, right? You are expressing your opinions and your strategies for the things that you do and the problems that people have, and you're just proving you know what you talk about. Like you have the experience, and for people to get that time where, as a host specifically, to be able to engage those people and give them that information and be entertaining enough that they don't want to tune you out, because that's the balance, right? You can have great information, but if you're boring as can be, people will have a hard time retaining that information. So hosting is that ability that's going to allow you to connect better with people, honestly, understand them better as well. Because when you think about that interviewing aspect of hosting, to understand your client, to have the right conversations with them, ask the right kind of questions that really dive deep into the needs that they have. Like when you combine all of that together of these hosting skills, yeah, you're telling people to their face what their problems are, how you solve those problems. You're making the arguments simple and concise so they know exactly what you're talking about, and it gives them every reason to at least fully understand what you do. And if they're not ready to work with you, when it comes time, they will keep checking back with you and eventually come home when it's time.
So this is a piece of content. So let's talk about the content flywheel, turning conversations like this one into client attracting content. That's what I hope the podcast is doing. And sometimes I bake offers into the thing and I put it mid-reel and I try and get people interested in my products and services. So how can hosting podcast episodes, Vince, or a panel, how can it create a bank of reusable content? So clips, quotes, posts, blogs. And the idea would be to build visibility, credibility, and just position service providers as trusted experts in the niche. So when you host, you're not just talking, right? You're documenting your expertise, as you just said, and you're creating this sort of magnetism of the client towards you. How do you specifically, advocate that we do that? That I do that as a podcast host, or perhaps my audience can do that as well.
Yeah, so a lot of it is just the strategy when you go into starting the show, because the big problem that a lot of people have when they start a podcast for their business is that they think, oh, I need the big audience and I'm doing this mass appeal thing. And as a result, they don't talk about what they do because what they do is specific. And that's why it's exactly the wrong approach. Don't do that. Talk about what you do, talk to that specific audience, and hammer those things again and again and again and again and again. So that's number one. And by doing that, where what you're saying is, okay, the show is aligned with my business and everything that I'm talking about on the show is connected to the kinds of problems that I solve, the people that I solve them for, and some of the nuances and experiences that I've had along the way to go and build the trust and show that I know what I'm talking about. So when you're doing that, by nature of doing the show, you are getting all of these clips and transcripts. Like all of that content is available. And even if it turns out that you're not ready in this moment to capitalize on all of it, which is fine, you've recorded the stuff, you have it. So you can always go back, and there's good reflection times. Even when you are making it constantly, you might not be able to, you might be getting clips out but not a transcript. Like no problem, when you get to a point where you're seeing the traction or you're ready to put more emphasis into your newsletter, yeah, you have that backlog. So that's the beauty of it, is all this stuff is there. A lot of times the ideas and the principles that you have don't change. And so that information is essentially evergreen. You can use it anytime for any number of years. And that's the value, right? It's the message is good, and it doesn't matter the time or the platform. It's valuable information. And so this gives you that easy, natural way to deliver it and then put it on all these different places as much as you can.
What about hosting as a relationship builder per se, Vince? How does hosting deepen professional relationships and just take you from service provider to, shoulder tapped go-to expert? That's what I try and help my clients turn themselves into through a personal branding strategy. So it's active listening, it's guiding dialogue, it's making the guest feel heard, and that can become a powerful networking and client conversion strategy, right? Do you have any specific, you said we're talking to specific audiences. Do you have any specific nuggets that we can apply in our conversations to get that magnetism back to us?
Yeah, so there's a couple of elements to it. One is a lot of the things that you talked about. It really boils down to curiosity, right? You have to be interested in the people that you're serving and being aware of the kinds of issues they have and making sure that you're fully understanding what their issues are and what they're more curious about so you can go and solve those things and address those problems. So, as much as you can have that, whether it's the overall conversation between you and the audience from months at a time, or it's that specific episode where you're bringing somebody on who might be an existing client of yours, a previous client of yours that like essentially graduated from you and moved on, a strategic partner that you could be working with, like all of those different ways to be curious, to showcase that interest and build the relationship just on a one-to-one conversational level. But the other side of it is not necessarily on the show itself, but it's from the data of the show. And what you want to think about is what episodes did well and what are some of the posts that I've had? Because if it's that same message, and ideally you're hosting some of these episodes yourself so that you're talking as the expert, singularly positioned with the knowledge and experience to give that to people. Hey, what are these solo episodes that I've done that have resonated with people? What are the things that they like hearing about? Am I talking about these issues enough? Can I get into that further? How do I repurpose that content to continue to reinforce that idea for parts of the audience that haven't seen it? Because a lot of times I think we tend to take for granted that, you have an audience and what those download numbers are is your audience. But the truth is a lot of times it's a seventh of your audience or a tenth of your audience. And they'll get the other, 7/8 will get to it some other time. So you have to reinforce these things, reintroduce that content, but you want to do it with the things that people resonate with the most. So it is listening in terms of what they actually dedicate their time to, in addition to what they, actually engage with.
You sound like a guy who's been on a lot of podcasts. You're a media guy, you're a former radio guy. Can you share an anecdote of what makes a host unforgettable? Is it about talking less and listening more? Is it about making others feel seen? What makes an ideal podcast host? I mean, this is good for me because I regularly host guest episodes, so I'm interested in your answer for my own show. Can you just share an anecdote of a podcast you've been on where you thought, yeah, this host really stood out because he did this?
Yeah, so on some level, it's being selfish and just being you. And if it turns out that you're somebody who is incredibly researched in what you do, and you want to have all of these deep dives that give all of this information and stats and stories and whatever, great. Go structure those episodes and go crazy and be uniquely you. Because a lot of people can sit down and do the basic interview stuff, but if you're one, owning your own stage and driving the episodes yourself, and two, saying, hey, this is my approach because it's not only how I do the show, but it's how I work, then that's a powerful thing. Like, I prepare my shows a lot. I spend a lot of time writing the outlines, making sure that the topic is specific and drilling down on all those things, because that's how I approach the medium and the work. I think it's important to prepare, which really brings me to that other point is, regardless of what your style is, if it is casual, if it is buttoned up, if it is long form or incredibly short form, whatever it might be, as specific with the topics as you can be is better for you and for the audience. And what I mean by that is, let's talk about sales. Okay. Sales is incredibly broad. Let's talk about sales in real estate. Let's talk about sales if you are a real estate agent that's dealing with first-time home buyers. Now you're specific, right? And it's, okay, well, how do you generate leads as somebody in real estate sales for first-time home buyers? Like, so it's, you see how it's like boiled down to such a specific thing, and you'd be surprised once, like, it's hard to get there at first to build that muscle and think that way. But once you get to those spots and push yourself to go that far, you'll realize that you have so much more to say and so much information and so much experience on that little thing that by the time you finish doing your episode, people will know you so well. They understand the subject matter so much better. And it's the kinds of things that the true insight that you will not get in other places because other people aren't thinking that in depth. They're not able to provide that level of information. And if they do, you have to listen to 40 minutes of an episode before they even begin to scratch the surface of that topic. And even then, how prepared are they? What kind of points are they making? Does it really resonate? Does anyone even get there? So there's a lot to be said for that. But yeah, the more specific you can be, the better relationship you will build and the more you'll stand out as a host because people won't be able to describe it, but they'll know that it's unique and different and more powerful, and they're walking away with more than what they get on other shows.
Yeah, 100%. And I would add that I think that hosting is a life skill. It's something I've been doing for a couple of years to complement the business, and coincided with the rise of AI. Vince, what's one hosting principle or a mindset, maybe a mindset that you live by every day, both on air and off air? One principle, one hosting principle or mindset.
Yeah, so it really is. I live on preparation, and so it's a little redundant, but I got to tell you, it's for everything, and it's one of those things that, as I'm now experiencing, because I have a huge family. So my dad, for example, my dad is one of 14.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so my dad's one of 14. My mom is one of 6. I have about 65 cousins total. I'm married. And then, my wife, like her parents are social butterflies and we're at all these weddings. And, like there's so many people there. And to try to keep track of everybody and have things to say at like a family event, you know what I mean? It's like, I got to think like, okay, well, did anybody have a baby recently? Did somebody graduate high school or college? Were there any trips that I saw people take on Instagram? You know what I mean? Like, it's just these kinds of things to remember because I'm so caught up in the day to day of just doing my job and like, maintaining the apartment and whatever that I don't get to think about other people too much other than when I see them. And so the idea of like being in the car and driving to the event and talking to my wife about, so what's been going on with people? What are they up to? Like it's the same thing as preparing for a show, but it allows me to go into the event with that mindset of, oh, here's what these people have been up to. I do remember this. I want to hear about that. I have a question for them based on the last time I saw them. And you strengthen those relationships, right? Because people know that you have been thinking about them. So it's a way to organize your thoughts and be ready for the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Being prepared is vital. So you have a total, if I calculated correctly, of 18 aunts and uncles. I mean, can you name all 18 of them in chronology? I mean, not now, but can you do it in your head?
How many days do you have? Yeah, no, I can do it. It definitely takes me some time. And yeah, for all of that, I mean, they're all married. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it becomes a crazy number of people. Like I got married last year, so I had to put together that list, and it was insane. I'm still writing thank you notes, and it's like 10 months later.
Right.
So someday I'll finish, but you never know when. So yeah, it's crazy, but that it is hard. So yeah, I have to think about those things, like going to a family party on my dad's side, for example.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. So from your vantage point as a professional communicator, Vince, where do you think audience attention is heading? And I'm thinking about podcasts because that's the medium we're on now. Where is audience attention heading in the next 12 months? You talked about the radio audience kind of, that went south, long as you left the industry and got into what you're doing now. Where do you think audience attention is heading? Is podcasting becoming obsolete? I mean, we all listen to, anyone listens to a podcast, right? Whether it's this one or, I listen to some, you listen to some. Where is that attention heading, do you think, in the next year?
Yeah, so it continues to be more segmented. And by that, I mean it's becoming platform specific, where a lot of times people, they have this idea that I'm going to post these short form clips. And by posting those on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, LinkedIn, by doing that, they're going to come over and listen to the podcast. And for the most part, that's not true. So you have to appreciate that. And so what it means is, people are staying on their own platforms, and that's how they digest your content. So your TikTok audience is your TikTok audience, your Instagram audience is your Instagram audience, your LinkedIn audience is your LinkedIn audience. And if you get some conversions out of that, again, small percentages, great. Like you'll get those, but it's never going to be large swings. It's not a 1-for-1 that everybody on Instagram or LinkedIn is following your podcast, obviously. So knowing that and appreciating that, because the thing is, with all of these other social platforms, as valuable as they are, and they are a way to use your content from the show to connect with people. So that's what matters. But the platforms are so dead set on the platform. They don't want you going to other places. They want to keep you on. They're trying to do everything that they can to make the layouts as intuitive and the fonts as captivating and the style so clean that you never leave the platform. They want you to stay on the platform forever. That's what they're built for. So how do you do that, right? Like that's what you have to accept, is you can't fight those things. In some cases, they're actively fighting you for trying to take people off the platform. So you just have to appreciate that and understand, your audience is going to be segmented, and that's how it is. And as much as you can bring them from one place to the other and get them in the main parts of your funnel, like go and do those things, push those things, but know that, it's not like everybody's going to just automatically easily convert to your newsletter. It's just not how people do things these days.
Vince, what's the best career or communication advice you've ever received as a radio host, or perhaps you've shared with a mentee? What's the best piece of advice you got in your career coming up, or perhaps you've passed on to someone else?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, for part of it, some of the best advice I've passed on to somebody else is don't work in sports radio. It's a terrible business. Right. So it's a dying field. It's a bubble, and it's a mistake. And same thing for editing as well. I think if you're trying to build like a life in editing, because I see a lot of that on the podcast side. People are editors, but when you look at AI tools and you're competing with freelancers globally that can do work at significantly less than you can, is like, for me, talking with local Americans, like their rate that they would have to charge versus somebody in the Philippines or whatever, like that, you can't compete. Yeah. People want an expert editor for, $5 an hour. So you can't afford that as somebody to work it. But other than that, I mean, it's so interesting because a lot of the principles that I got from radio and picking the brains of all these established professionals, a lot of that work was almost a totally different style. I had to invert what the intent is from large audience and being able to get the largest amount of people. Like, what's the topic that's most applicable to the largest amount of people, and then do the complete opposite. So I've almost had to betray all of the teachings that I've been taught, and that information has been useful because I'm doing the opposite. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny how that works.
Yeah, you mentioned podcast audio editing in the Philippines. This show is actually edited by a VA in the Philippines. So Heidi, if you're listening, shout out to you. Love you. Thank you so much for all you do. I appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, what sports did you commentate? Because I'm a tennis freak. Are you talking about American football, baseball? Did you do all those sports? Was it other sports? I'm just interested here.
Yeah, so for the most part, it was football. That's the biggest sport in Philly. People love
Right.
the Eagles. They're always a really good team. They've won the Super Bowl
Wow.
twice now in the last couple of years.
No
So
way.
yeah, they're just they're as good as you can get. So they're a great team. The city loves the sport. I've got a hat for the team behind me, right behind me in the
I
corner
see the
there.
green hat. That's okay.
Yeah. So there you go. So yeah, football is the number one sport by a mile. We also, from there, you'd get into just general conversation about the NFL, beyond the Eagles, but otherwise, it was all the local teams. So basketball, baseball, hockey, it was all the local teams, and that's what people were into the most. So that's what you talk about.
Okay, so in just one word, because these are supposed to be quick fire questions, how would you describe the future of hosting with AI in the mix? Now that AI is on the rise, or continues rising, how would you describe the future of hosting? How has it been impacted by AI?
Getting lazier. If you want to,
Okay.
I can elaborate, but if you want a quick hit, it's lazier.
Okay, so is that in terms of the editing of the files, or what do you just elaborate a bit on that?
Topic selection. People are going to settle for what GPT gives them and not dig deep enough, and they're
Right.
going to be creating the same content as everybody else.
Got it. Yeah. Uh, Vince, what's a podcasting or a media investment? So it might be time, it might be tech, it might be talent that didn't pay off the way you expected. So the way you expected it to go, it didn't go that way. Can you think of an investment, a media investment, a podcasting investment
Huh.
along those lines that didn't go the way you hoped?
It's an investment in strategic partners has been the biggest thing. There's been certain people like marketing agencies, for example, that were talking a big game of how they'd be able to help me in my business, and I did not see the results at all. It was a massive sink of time, and it was a huge disappointment. So yeah, I think just in general, strategic partnerships sound great, and a lot of times people do not follow through the way that you'd hope.
Vince, any final thought or key takeaway for my audience? So what if, let's just say someone is thinking about starting a podcast, what would you say to a beginner, perhaps to use podcast as a means of influence and leverage for a business?
Yeah. So number one is alignment with your business. Everything that you're doing is what you should be talking about. Number two, make sure that you are the star of the show. You can absolutely have guests, but don't do it every single episode. Give yourself the opportunity to build the relationship with your audience, show that you're the expert, and do that consistently. With that said, as well, I would suggest not bringing guests on that do exactly what you do unless you have a great relationship with that person and they are a friend of yours. And so it's not necessarily a competitive thing, but otherwise they're talking about subject matter that you are the expert in. So why are you getting somebody else to come on to then talk to you about things that you have your own expertise and opinions on? Like, you've robbed yourself of an opportunity to talk about your own value to your own customer and let somebody else do it for their business instead. So those are the kinds of things that I think are really important. And beyond that, it's just be willing to refine. Once you have that strategy in place, look at it every couple of months, see where things are, make adjustments. Don't beat yourself up about it, and just be willing to put in the work to get better.
Yeah, that's such good advice. So I try and do a mixture of solo episodes and guest episodes. I love having guests on because it's usually someone from a different world to mine, like you. So it's a very interesting conversation talking to someone new. Vince, where can my listeners connect with you? What's the best platform to learn more about your work and your expertise? Would that be LinkedIn? Have you got a website?
Yeah. So number one place to go and find me is my podcast. It's Not Just Talking with Vince Quinn is the show. And so it's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And all I do on that show is talk about growing your business through a podcast. That's it. That's all I do. So it's Not Just Talking. Again, it's any platform where you get your podcasts.
All right, it's Not Just Talking, hosted by Vince Quinn. We are going to get a link out to that in the show notes. All right, let's wrap it up for today's episode of How to Find More Direct Clients, Freelancer Training on How to Find More Direct Clients. Stay tuned for more engaging discussions on the ever-evolving landscape of language and digital marketing. Until next time, remember to stay on your game and don't forget to future-proof your career in the AI era. It's bye from me, your host, and thank you very much to my special guest, Vince Quinn. See you next time.
Here's a fun fact about Jason. Jason played cello in the Bath Symphony Orchestra in the UK. Thanks for tuning in to the How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At podcast. We'll be back soon. In the meantime, why not head over to www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com to access all our tools and resources to monetize and future-proof your freelance translation business. And don't forget to hit the plus button in Apple Podcasts or iTunes, or subscribe in Spotify to be notified when new episodes drop. For regular tips and insights, business strategy, or marketing techniques straight to your inbox, please sign up at www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com.